X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet everyone, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron's Master Class. I see the professor is walking up to the podium. So, take a seat, get comfortable. The class is ready to begin.
And merry meet everybody, and welcome to tonight's masterclass with Amy Blackthorn. Now, Amy's been called an arcane horticulturist for her lifetime working with magical plants, and she has a certification in aromatherapy and incorporates her experiences in traditional witchcraft with her horticultural studies. And she's the founder of Blackthorn's, I can't even talk today, botanical, a prolific author, like with Blackthorn's Botanical Brews, Sacred Smoke, and so many other things. And the latest book, Sacred Plant Magic, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And if anyone wants to ask Amy a question or share a comment, and you're live here in the Para X chat room, fire away. And if you're not in the chat room, it's not too late for you to join us at paraxradionetwork.com. So, welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sorry I'm kind of blah because it's hotter than Hades here. I'm glad you're going to do most of the talking tonight. But before I step back and kind of let you get started, someone texted me this morning when I posted the banner, and she asked me to ask you what was the definition of sacred plants as opposed to regular plants?
That is such a great question. The title of the book refers to the magic being sacred, not necessarily a single plant, because all plants are sacred in my practice. I want to know what they think and how they feel and what they want to contribute to the relationship that we're building together. When we talk about magic practice, a lot of people say, oh, I have a money spell I need, so I'm going to use patchouli. The word use is so grating to my ears because I want people to experience the relationships they can build with these plants, because it's such an important distinction between viewing plant matter as something you can just throw into a spell willy-nilly and the relationship that you can build with the spirit of the plant and developing a sacred bond between you and the plant spirits that we're meeting.
Okay. All right, I'm going to tiptoe. Well, yeah, I'll hand over everything to you, the platform, and we'll see when questions come in, and, the rest of the time we're going to listen.
Perfect. Okay. Beautiful.
All right.
It's such a great question leading in, because when we talk about the idea of plant spirits, we're not just diving face first into a bed of tulips and petunias. You can do that. But we're talking about developing relationships with the spirits of these plants. So if I've had a long day, I walk into my kitchen and I decide I need a cup of peppermint tea. I get down my infuser and I get down my mug and I grab a pound of peppermint and I scoop out, I start brewing my tea, and I enchant it with the idea of releasing some of the tension or pain that I've experienced that day. And I wander into the living room with my pit bull Millie, and I sit down on the couch and I bring the beautiful brew up to my nose and I inhale these peppermint fumes. And I inhale that warm, tingling sensation back into my sinuses, and I enjoy this cup of peppermint tea. I compost the peppermint leaves when I'm done. But where is the spirit of peppermint? I've drank all my brew, composted the leaves. No matter how much peppermint tea I enjoy, I cannot, as a single person, drink enough peppermint tea to damage the spirit of peppermint. The arch spirit of peppermint, we'll say, is going to be there and vibrant and growing just as long as there's one person on planet Earth that knows what mint is, what peppermint is, can identify it, can remember the smell or the taste of a certain candy. Peppermint endures. The spirit of peppermint endures. It's a lot like when we talk about how we view plants in a similar light as to egregore or thought forms. When my niece was 8 years old, she came to me and she said, "Aunt Amy, I have a question and I know you'll tell me the truth." Oof, that's a lot of weight for 8 years old. Okay, hit me with it. What you got? And she says, with her most solemn 8-year-old voice, "Is Santa Claus real? I know you'll tell me the truth." Oof, okay, let's do this. So yes, Santa Claus is real, but not in the way that you think. She's waiting. She's waiting for this to be a trick somehow. Very serious, 8 years old. And I said, Santa Claus was based on a saint that lived a very long time ago. Saint Nicholas was a real person. He was the person who put donations in the stockings of that hung up outside on the line. He wanted to make sure that his community was fed, that his community was taken care of. And so he became Saint Nicholas. And we take this idea of Saint Nicholas and people believe in it for years and years and turns into decades and turns into centuries. And then we have the Coca-Cola idea of Santa Claus, the white beard and the fluffy hat and the great big shiny belt to keep everything together. And enough people believe it over time, over distance, and over centuries at this point. The number of people keep growing who believe in Santa Claus. So even if St. Nicholas didn't exist, we have created the idea of Santa Claus, and enough people have believed in it for so long that we created Santa Claus. So you can invoke the spirit of Santa Claus, you can work with the spirit of Santa Claus, but that doesn't mean that the guy at the mall is going to grant all your wishes. This is the guy that's going to help your parents know what you need for Christmas. So he's helping in the way that we talk about helping spirits, but the spirit of Santa Claus is real. And I think she got most of that. So when we talk about spirit relationships and creating these bonds between ourselves and the plants that we experience, it's not just the far-flung plants that are sparking your interest and ideas today. It's the plants that we work with every day. If you reach into your spice cabinet and always grab the garlic and onion for every meal, you're working with garlic and onion. Does that mean that you pray to garlic and onion? No. I mean, in my family you would. But it's not just the idea that these plants exist. It's that we're developing these relationships to really see what we can offer each other in a mutual exchange to understand the plant on a deeper level and increase the opportunities for us to create lasting relationships. When we connect to these plants, when we develop those relationships, we can connect to those plants in their absence. We don't have to have the peppermint plant sitting in front of me for me to work a spell with peppermint. I don't need that extra piece because I've developed a relationship with peppermint. So how do I do that? One of the easiest ways is to look at the plants that you're finding in your daily life. Garlic and onion are two examples. But if you're not cooking for yourself, if you're door dashing most of your meals, there are still plants that can influence your life and where you are right this minute. Whether that's the tree you wait under for your ride share on the way to work, whether it's the ficus in the corner of your office that sometimes looks just a little bit tired. Each of these plants has an opportunity to give you something for your life experience, and you can give something back. If you were standing under that tree waiting for your ride share and talking about your boss over the phone, you're literally exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide between the two of you. So it's not just that we have things that we can get from this. We're actually developing relationships just as you would with a friend that you meet at work. The first day you meet 30 new people and you've got to try and, oh my goodness, remember all of these names. So I'm walking around shaking hands, and you're Hannah, and that's Bob, and that's Claire, and that's Sue. Okay. Tomorrow, I'm going to remember none of this. I might remember 1 or 2 names, but I'm definitely not remembering 30. And of those 30 people that I met, I might remember that Clara has a son who plays dodgeball. Maybe. These are relationships that we're building over time. So every time you run into someone at the water cooler and stop to talk about the weather, you're learning something about them, even if it's not the most deep interaction. They've got to start at surface level, because if you dive right in, you just scare people away. So when we talk about creating those relationships, we are taking a journey inward into our inner landscape, or we're dealing directly with the plant itself. What's an inner landscape? The place that we start when our eyes are closed and we imagine a start screen, sort of like a video game. The place that we start from is always the same, so we have a place of reference, or that reference point brings us back to the start. This makes a great place to meet your spirit guides, to meet plant allies, to meet all sorts of spirits, because you know this is a safe place. This is a place where you are in control, and you are the one who has designed it, fielded it, painted it, and loved it. So you know that this is the best place for you to start from. It could look like your college dorm room. It could look like your first apartment. It could look like the bedroom that you live in now. But the most important part is that it looks like somewhere you know that you are safe. For one person, it'll be an open field with a willow tree on a hill. For one person, it might be a hut in the woods. The most important part is making sure that you feel safe in that space, because stepping outside of that is going to rely on that trust. You can take your guardian angel, your spirit guide with you if you have any concern over what you're meeting or who you're meeting or where. But say you'd like to work with dill. You'd like to meet the spirit of dill. You can start from your inner landscape, working out with or without a spirit guide, and ask the spirit of dill if they'd like to work with you. They may appear as a person, as a human with a body. They may appear as more of a plant spirit. Oftentimes it's colored by how you are comfortable with this idea. So if you're more comfortable with a person with a face and a body, they're more willing to reach out in that way.
I think that I'm going to interrupt here for 1 second. As far as seeing them or feeling them, I think a lot of people will feel them more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because I think they might not they rub their eyes and think, I saw something. No, I didn't see that. But the feeling is really important, right?
Absolutely. I want the hair on your arms to stand up and you to feel that electric connection between you and the spirit next to you. That is what tells you that this is a real experience. When I have clients who say, okay, I've gone through my meditation and I've seen some things. How do I know that this is real and not a projection? Best question. And the answer is surprisingly simple. The idea is surprise. If you find something, if you experience something that really takes you off guard, you didn't expect that, that's a great indication that you're having a true experience and not a projection. If you close your eyes and you want to experience Rose and she appears as a pretty princess with a conical hat and dressed in taffeta, and you think, oh, this is great, and we were best friends, and the end, then chances are it's a projection. But if you ask to meet Rose and they appear as a grunge kid from the 90s with flower petal glasses. Well, maybe that's different because that's the surprise you're looking for. But that surprise is what tells you in your heart and in your spirit that this is a true experience and not just a projection.
Okay.
So look out for that.
No, so something came through in my head. It's scary sometimes. But these, are they taking the same feeling? I mean, like, would an onion spirit be kind of like, and hot chili pepper, would it be a bad-tempered spirit? I mean, do they pick up that kind of feelings?
They really do. For example, lemon balm or Melissa has a very calm, structured, sedative properties. So it's a very calm spirit to encounter and have a conversation with. It's a very easy spirit to get to know because I say she because of the name Alyssa. She brings forth that energy of calm, sedate, and willing to listen.
I like the thought of it. I can just see this little even guy with the green pepper, the hottest pepper, a habanero,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't want to cross that one.
I'm sure he's got a little Scoville units tattoo on his arm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got a message or a comment from the chat room. She says, when I smell lily of the valley and it's in the fall, I always believe that my paternal grandmother is with me.
Oh, how beautiful. Lily of the valley is really, really interesting because science has not been able to create the same electrical chemical impulses that happen when we inhale that lily of the valley scent. They haven't been able to recreate this in the same way. It's very interesting because lily of the valley, when gentlemen give it a smell, it actually has proven within seconds to excite spermatozoa before they've been expelled. So if you're attempting to enhance your fertility, having lily of the valley on hand is a great way to stimulate that fertility in the gentleman partner.
And she said, so the question that followed, does lily of the valley have a significance to my experience?
Absolutely. Because of the scent connection that you've built in your mind as a bridge between you and your grandmother, the lily of the valley spirit is sort of standing there acting as a bridge, both spiritually and physically, because of the way that our brains interact with the scent that we're working with. When we have a scent trigger a memory, it's not happenstance at all. Our brain has to go through the little Rolodex of scents that we've experienced in our life before it can get to recognition. So it has to go through those memories before it can find, oh, there's the Lily Valley file. But it does this by going backwards in time to yesterday and the day before and the day before to the last time you smelled that smell. Not the first time. But what that does, because our memory works backwards, obviously, when we're taking that thought and we're putting it backwards in time to really pinpoint the smell of Lily of the Valley, for example, we're now smelling the last time we remembered the smell of Lily of the Valley, not the first, which allows people with scent-based trauma to write over those memories. If there's something that's bothered you in the past, we can actually rewrite over those memories because we're not smelling the first time, we're smelling a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
I think that sometimes, too, we take from life to life to life, bring it up each time. Just out of the blue, all of a sudden you have this affinity for roses or patchouli or something, and maybe that, we carry it with us in every life.
I truly believe that we do. There's been so many instances of young children bringing back memories from previous lives that there's no way it can't also work for the smells and the other experiences that we've had. They've experienced having freckles in places where they had injuries in the previous lifetime. Our bodies carry those memories even as we as people bring forth those memories to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I'll let you keep going.
Oh, no. I love it. So because we can connect with plants in their absence, because we can bring forth those relationships and those energies to the forefront. I could meet parsley, or I could meet rose, or I could meet clove. That really opens up a huge door to plant relationships outside of our zone, outside of our biome, outside of our continent, and outside of our epoch. Meaning we can interact with plants that haven't existed on this planet for thousands of years. Just by remembering that it existed, just by looking up its picture on Google Images, just by finding a portrait of it in a botanical garden, we can connect with those plants because the memory of them still exists in human consciousness. We can really bring that idea forward, and this works today in ways that you can see anywhere on. So if you go into Lowe's, for example, you go into the landscaping section and you're wandering through the racks of plants, you can find something that looks vaguely strawberry-like. The fruit on the label will be white, and it'll have bright red seeds on the outside, almost like a reverse strawberry. So when you look at this, your brain says, oh, some new variety of strawberry I don't know about. And you're only half right. This plant is actually the precursor to strawberries. It was thousands and thousands of years ago this plant existed on the planet. They found seeds in a jar, and actually one of the really incredible archaeological digs that they were taking upon. They opened up a jar, they found seeds, and said, hey, we'll see if we can germinate these seeds today. And it turned out to be something like 35,000 years old. Some ridiculously amazing number. They were able to germinate the seeds, and they created them. This is something called a pineberry. It looks like a strawberry because it's an ancient ancestor. It doesn't taste like the strawberries that we know today. It tastes more like a pineapple. It's got this sweet fruit, but it's more puckers the corners of your cheeks, and it's definitely the last thing that you would accuse a strawberry tasting like. So it's really incredible that we can look at plants today that existed thousands of years ago that we had no idea existed on this plane until we came upon their seeds. In 2020, we had amazing horticultural news. There was a plant called silphium in ancient Greece and Rome, and it was thought to be, it made food taste better. It made sex more pleasurable. It acted as an abortifacient. It was a miracle plant that did thousands of different things, and it was so highly regarded. They've actually put it on their money. So instead of Benjamin Franklin, you had a beautiful silphium plant on the picture on their money. So the very last one that was found to exist on this planet was presented to the emperor as a gift, and he ate it in front of a giant crowd. In 2020, we actually found a specimen of silphium 150 miles from the last place one was seen, just growing in a field. They just appeared. They have no idea where it came from. They are not sure how it even got there, but it looks and has the same taxonomy. They have all of the experimental drawings that they've been able to recover, and it's the same plant as far as we can tell to date. These plants are reaching out for us to develop these relationships. They want to experience what we're doing. They want to make sure that we're able to connect on that level. And they want to see what they can offer us and we can offer them. We've been able to prove with science that plants have thoughts and feelings and desires just the same way as people do. It's just that we have a central nervous system and they sort of don't usually. How many of us have stepped outside on a spring morning and said, oh, it smells so beautiful outside. Someone must be cutting the grass. It smells green and alive and vibrant. Scientists have proven that the chemical is actually being released. It's a pheromone saying, hey, there's danger. Someone's doing something to the plants near us. It's a fear hormone they're releasing saying, hey, danger is happening. Guard yourselves. So these pheromones are being released, and plants, which we've already proven have networking capabilities, are telling each other, hey, things are a little scary right now. Make sure that you're as protected as you can be. Save some water in your roots for you to regrow if there's a problem. Mycelium does it. Plants do it. Trees do it. And it's really incredible the networks that these plants have built, releasing pheromones when a certain bug happens to nibble on a leaf. They automatically release these pheromones to make it harder for that, we'll say, Japanese beetle to take a munch out of it and to keep going. So they're reacting to their stimuli in their environment just as though we are. It's just that we have a little bit easier time communicating with each other. So the biggest part about discussing how we can create the idea of working with these plant spirits is just taking time to quiet down and listen. You can walk out your front door, and I found a Lobelia inflata. Lobelia is a beautiful cardinal flower. It usually gets red flowers on it. It grows in the edges of the woods. So it's not really walking out your front door material. I happened to see it. Well, it's an air plant, so it's bringing in air into my space. What do I need to breathe life into? It's a great place to stop and think. But it goes even further than that. About 10 years ago, I was wandering around my property, and Marla knows this story, and I walked around the backside of the fence, and I happened to see a poke plant. Those of you who aren't familiar with poke, it's a bright purple and green and fuchsia plant that looks like a red flag growing out of the ground. It's poisonous. So if it's poisonous, it can protect itself. If it can protect itself, it can protect you. So the measurement, the message that I got was, hey, what's behind me that I can't see? What is danger that I'm missing? So I had to really stop and go through my experiences in my day-to-day and say, what is the danger that I'm not seeing? And I firmly believe if Poke hadn't reached out, hadn't given me that message, that I would not be here today. So it's not just how can we use plants. We try and develop relationships with them instead of that taker mindset of using plant material or any other spell component. What we're doing is we're connecting on a deeper level and seeing what we can offer the friendships to these plant spirits.
We got a question, and we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, but she says, what about plant communication like you have animal communication?
Absolutely. This is a huge idea, and it's a very important part of the idea of connecting with these plant spirits. Taking time to quiet yourself and really try and connect with that plant spirit is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. It does take a little bit of time to learn how to be quiet and listen to it, but one of the best ways that you can do is go out to a stand of plants, whether it's the grass in your yard or the clover growing in the sidewalk cracks, or even sunflowers growing down the street. But go and sit with them for a few minutes. Try and ask one, hey, do you mind if I take some of your plant material? Do you mind if I cut some mint? That plant may say yes or no, or you might not hear anything. You might feel a warmth and a tingling on your shoulder that feels like a yes. You might feel cold and sluggish on the other one. It may feel like a no. Think of it from the plant's perspective. When it's not as sunny outside, it's not getting as much light, it might feel a little cooler. So listen to your body and tell you what is actually happening here, because it's going to be a little more difficult to stop and listen. It's not as though you're getting a text about it. So if you got a yes from one plant and a no from another plant, great. If I get 3 no's from the same type of plant in the same area, say 3 different sunflowers in one stand of sunflower, I'm not thinking that the spirit of sunflower thinks that I'm a jerk. What may have happened is there could have been a spray for bugs that I didn't know about. There could be something leaching into the soil that wouldn't be healthy for me to ingest. There's all sorts of reasons and ways why a plant may choose not to work with you just right now. And I guarantee you, 90% of the time, it's not personal. The important part is just stopping and giving ourselves permission to listen.
It's pretty hard for a lot of people.
Absolutely. There are billion-dollar industries built on it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take that break. And so everybody stay put, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Cauldron will be right back, so don't go away. If you end up with webbed feet, remember, you've been warned.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. Covenant House is the national leader providing safe housing for youth, 50 years strong. Every youth who walks into Covenant House gets clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. So, look closer at Covenant House and help us fight youth homelessness. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid of? Horror Paranormal Show Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What are you afraid of on Para X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction. We are ready to scare you.
Para X.
Missed an episode of Stirring the Cauldron? Then be sure to check out marlabrooks.com and check out the archive. And while you're there, check out Marla's weekly Witches Oracle card reading. Explore the site to find many great resources, such as information on tarot, oracle readings, metaphysical consultations, and links to all of Marla's books. That's marlabrooks.com. Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And our masterclass teacher is Amy Blackthorn, and we're talking about sacred plant magic. So let's carry on. There was something I was going to ask, and I totally forgot. So you, I'll just leave it to you, and it might come back.
So we talk about the magic of individual plants being these lists of correspondences that we try and tell ourselves that we're going to memorize, and somehow it just gets put off until the next coven meeting or the next month or the next full moon. But these individual plants have a lot more of us to teach than just their correspondences, just the academic concerns for individual plants. We can find this by looking inward or talking to the plant itself and asking them, the spirits of the plants, what is it that you have to teach me? How would you best like to learn to experience each other? There are so many ways that we can do that. But it's not just the individual plant as a plant spirit, the overarching spirit of peppermint. You can also look to the guidance of individual plants that are close to you. For example, the peppermint that grows in your garden. The growing garden mint that is on your property knows when you come and go, where you've been, where you're going, what the temperature's like, what the weather is doing. But the spirit of peppermint, it has more of the lofty ideas of the whole, the very general spirit of what we're trying to accomplish with peppermint. So I liken it to the difference between the overarching spirit of peppermint is the Pope, and the small garden mint in my yard would be my neighbor who's Catholic. They might have similar ideas on the broad strokes, but they're going to have personal experiences that differ. So what does this look like as magical practitioners? If we take a mint plant that was growing in between the cracks in the sidewalk in Baltimore City, it's going to have a different magical personality than a pot of mint that was grown on an organic farm in Denver. They're going to have different experiences. They'll have different chemical compositions because of the chemical makeup of the soil, how much water they got, what was in the air. In horticulture and in aromatherapy, we call these chemotypes. So one thyme plant is going to have higher chemicals of one type than another because they're grown in separate biomes and separate climates and separate soils. That's why we can have chemotypes of lavender having different aromas or different flavors. We can utilize this in a way in our magic by looking at the personality of that plant. So if I harvested some oak from a swamp in lower Delaware, it might encourage the magic of letting go, the strength in letting go, in breaking things down. We're looking at that magic of decay. Whereas I'm getting a fresh growing green leaf from an organic farm in Denver. I just love Denver, apparently. You can actually use them for two different magical uses because they have two different magical personalities, even though they're the same plant. So those individual plants, please look at if you're deciding to harvest plant material for your own use, look at where it was harvested, write some of that down, because it's going to have a different magical personality when it comes time to actually get some work done and, work with a capital W. If you're a person with an allergy, it might be very tempting to say, okay, I wonder what I can learn from this plant. Please make sure you're not actually interacting with something that can physically make you sick. Allergies are very serious, even if they are not currently presenting as serious. They can absolutely turn deadly anytime with no warning at all. Instead, perhaps you can talk to the spirit of that plant and see if there's something you can find to learn from each other. You're allergic to lavender. Talk to the spirit of lavender and say, is there something that we can learn from each other? There may not be a lesson. There may be. It's absolutely worth it to give it an ask. That way you can say, hey, there's some experiences here that we're sharing, but there's probably something we can learn from each other to figure that out.
I get kind of creepy when some plant starts to die. And because I watched it, I have this beautiful zebra plant, and it was so good, and I love it. It tells you when you have to water it. You don't have to guess, and it was getting big leaves, and it was just beautiful. And in a day, they all withered and fell off.
Oh wow!
And I'm feeling like, damn, I didn't do anything. I mean, maybe the heat. It's been very hot, but they've got them in the breezeway, so they don't have the direct sun. I mean, everything is there, and I keep looking over there. I walk over by it, and I'm like feeling really guilty, and I don't think I did it. So is the spirit still in the plant? I mean, I don't think it's dead per se, but it just all the leaves and they weathered and fell off, and I almost wanted to cry. It was so funny.
Oh, goodness.
No, because I saved him from Lowe's, plant thing that they're going to throw out.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 cents for this plant. And yeah, and so now I feel like I did something. But
there's a couple different things that could be happening. One, there could be a physical ailment with the plant. It's always possible.
Yeah.
The spirit is still there. There's going to be spirit as long as it's alive, and then even especially if there's volatile oil in the plant that has a smell, there's going to be some spirit left over once it is crossed the veil. So the peppermint I harvest from my garden still has part of that peppermint spirit because I'm going to be able to smell the volatile oils in that peppermint. It gives you a lifeline between the spirit and the plant itself, which is why after a year or two, when they stop smelling and they sort of blanch and they're very white, you can compost them. It's time for them to release that form and move on to the next one. Just like the herbs in our cabinet have an expiration date, so do all living things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to give yourself credit for nurturing the spirit that it has while it's here. There's a thought between people and familiar spirits in their homes, plants being one of the most easily connected plants to our plants, to the spirit in our heart, that plants can choose to take a hit for us. So say someone lobbed a nasty curse at you, it may have hit that beautiful zebra plant instead and made sure that it wasn't able to affect you as a person.
Mm-hmm. It could be. It's just strange, and really this heat is not doing a lot of the plants, they're just kind of like getting dried and looking sad. So, I'm out there and I'm spraying them and, doing whatever need. But, there's certain plants that you really get attached to more than others sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, now it's right out the door when I get out the door, and I just look over there and I keep walking. Well, I talk to it, but I'm asking it what happened, and I haven't gotten an answer yet.
I'll be interested to hear if you do.
Yeah, I will too, because I can feel them around, but I've never heard anything. Maybe I'm not open enough or something to it, but yeah.
It's a very still,
know.
quiet voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now I'll be quiet again.
No, you're fine. So if we have the experience of being allergic to something, again, I'm going to go back to my example of lavender. If you're allergic to lavender, it's okay for you to decide to move up in the family line, so to speak, to try and see if there's someone in that family that you can work with for the same aims of your lavender intention. What am I talking about? If you remember back to your middle school science classes, every recognized species on Earth has a two-part scientific name. So this is called a binomial nomenclature. So we have the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, species, and variety, and plants, going down in specificity. I'm going to have to take that away from her.
Go ahead.
Oh, Miss Mills. Mama is on an interview, baby. You can have this back in a minute.
That's all right. My cat just bit me because I didn't have any food in his dish, so we're equal. But,
so when we're talking about lavender, we're talking about Lavandula angustifolia or Lavandula spica. When you breed them together, when you cross-pollinate those two plants, you come up with something else called lavandin. It's also called green lavender or lemon lavender or citrus lavender. What it does is it has a different chemical makeup than its parent plants of lavender. So it actually has more cleaning chemicals in it for antibacterial, antifungal properties than the healing properties that we associate with traditional lavender. It actually grows faster and produces flower a little bit more readily. But what it's doing is it's actually concentrating those antibacterial and those germ-fighting properties. So it's actually being used in hospitals to cleanse the area of any harmful germs in hospitals and in operating theaters and even veterinary hospitals. So just saying the word lavender kind of leaves out part of the story. So if we are able to go to the head of the lavender family, that would be, we call it the mint family. There's 236 genera, the plural of genus, in that family. So you can find Agastache, Hyssopus, Lavandula, where the lavenders live, Melissa, all of the mints, Monarda, if anyone's familiar with bee balm, that fluffy, delicious, beautiful plant. Paravitex is where we find chaste tree berry for hormone regulation. Paravoskia is where Russian sage lives. So all of these are found in the mint family. So they're hugely varied plants. But there's definitely going to be a similar family resemblance, in what the magic is that these plants accomplish. So you can look at Pogostemum is where patchouli is hiding. There are 92 Pogostemums, but the patchouli is just one. Rosemary was recently, as early as 2018, was reclassified. It used to be Rosmarinus officialis, and it was by itself in the rosemary mint family. It's now been reclassified as a salvia. So it's been more closely related to sage. But if you look at sage, if you just say the word sage, again, it's leaving out a whole bunch of the story because we have 987 accepted species of salvia. It's nearly 1,000. It's just an unfathomable number for plants. So we have the garden sage, clary sage, white sage, diviner sage. Those are just a few of them, and they vary wildly in their size, their color, their appreciation. The Salvia divinorum leaves can be 6 feet across. It's just giant. And when you look at your traditional garden sage, you're looking at a leaf the size of your thumb. So just saying salvia is, again, not the whole story. So if you go to the head of the mint family, the magic of the mint family has the element of air. It's really associated with the day of Wednesday. So any of the things that you could find in the mint family, they're going to have the magic of purification, of clarity, good luck, any of the things that are associated with air as an elemental. So good luck, uplifting mood, gaineth material objects. The healing that air offers is to dry things out and keep them great. So if you have a lingering cough that's really trying to stick around and making you miserable, doing magic with air is going to help bring in some of that fresh air and clean out some of the things that don't need to be there. So it releases negative emotions, it spurs action, it's great for divination and relaxation. So you can go to the head of the mint family for any of these things. If you have, say you're allergic to lavender and you want to make sure that you can work with this family.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
There's a question. Well, it's not a question, it's a comment, but it I think it's going to be interesting. She says she grows aquatic plants in her fish tank. Now, what about that?
They are so lucky to have you, because aquatic plants can be very susceptible to diseases, to issues, and if their water gets just the wrong pH in it, it's going to have a bad time. So I'm so glad that these aquatic plants are reaching out for their connection to what you're offering them. All plants have the opportunity to develop relationships with us. Even the really incredible algae that exist in volcanoes, they're going to have the magic of fire and change. Every biome has its own individual plant species, even if it's just seaweed that's been floating in the middle of the ocean and has never seen a person. There's going to be magic that's inherent in that specific species that we can absolutely connect with, even if you don't know their name, if you don't know what it is, because we can go further up this chain that we're talking about to find something that you do understand, that you do have experience with. So, for example, if you found Corsican mint, it is so tiny, the leaves are smaller. You could fit 4 Corsican mint leaves on the head of a pin. It's just absolutely tiny, and it's so small, it grows like moss. So your brain says, oh, look at that beautiful moss. But no, it's actually peppermint. So we can absolutely find something that you have recognition within these families, even if you don't know what you're looking at. You can look at the shapes of the flowers, if it has any, the shapes of the leaves, the color of the plant material itself. Again, I want to go back to that poke example. It's bright red and fuchsia and purple and green. All of these vibrant colors are absolutely sending a message, and that message is danger.
We've got another question. She said, if you after sampling catnip, a few of my cats find a fluffy blanket to knead on and purr. Do you think animals also react to certain plant smells and tastes like we do?
Absolutely, 1,000%. Each of these conditions that our bodies are having, they are leftover memories from the last person and the last person and the last person. We inherit this genetic memory of what plants are doing, what our experiences have been as people in our climate. You know, you find a plant that you're like, oh, I'd be interested in checking that out, and you take a little nibble of the very perfect berry. It looks delicious, and it's bitter, and it feels like it's burning your tongue, so you spit it out. Your genetic memories of someone else in your family line who has eaten that plant and said, no, that's poison. Bitter equals bad. I spit that right out. It doesn't have to be an experience that you personally have had. Our brains and are wired for survival. If you don't ever do this, are foraging for mushrooms and decide, I'm gonna try this mushroom, and you chomp into it and it tastes bitter and awful, spit it out. Don't keep eating it. The animals in our lives and without are having those same experiences every day. Our nose is one of the most important senses that we have, because it's going to tell us what is dangerous and what's not. What's the experience going to be like if I eat this plant? So they are all having those same experiences. And I absolutely love watching cats have catnip for the first time, because it's a sedative. People think, oh, well, they act a little crazy. It must be energizing for them. It's really a sedative, but it gives them the permission to experience who they were when they were babies, when they were younger. So it's giving that spiritual connection to who they were as babies, which is why we have the kneading and the snuggling and even the little bit of extra play, because it's giving them permission to release some of the pain they may have experienced and remember who they were as babies.
Mm. There's another question, but I don't know what it relates to, but maybe you do. She said something about, what about bitter melon? It's bitter but edible?
It is. I'm not sure about the question itself. When we talk about bitter plants being good for us, we talk about, especially herbs, there are a lot of bitter herbs out there that are not really great in a flavor, but we know that they are actually beneficial for us. So there's a difference between tasting like bitter poison and tasting bitter enough that you're like, okay, I know this is good for me, even though I'm not going to enjoy it. For example, there are some really fantastic plants out there that work for stress, but because they're heavy roots, because they're parts of grasses, the flavor is going to be a little off. For example, another herbalist friend had to go to the restroom during a class, and they came back out and they said, "Oh, what is that awful swampy odor that is day behind? What happened?" She had just opened a jar of valerian, which I think smells like cat pee. But it is definitely amazing for people who are needing help getting to sleep. Does it smell great? No. Does it taste great? Definitely no. But we know that it's beneficial because it's been proven both scientifically and conversationally, relationally.
Mm. Yeah, a little bitter is good for everybody. Wakes you up.
Yeah.
All right. Wait a minute. Maybe there's another question here. Oh, no. Thank you for all the answers, is what she's saying.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. We've got maybe 5 minutes to go. First of all, let's talk about the book and talk about what it entails, because there's a lot of stuff in that book. And
oh my goodness, yes.
It's out. It did come out. When?
Yes, it came out yesterday.
Oh, great. Good timing. Okay.
I really love this because it starts with scent and memory and personal history, and it talks about the way that we smell things and why it's so personal and why it changes from person to person, because people don't really understand the reasons behind that personal scent history and why it's important. We'll talk about flower essences and how to create them, why you should, why you might. And then the most important part of that is how to do that safely. We always want to be safe with both our bodies and our spirits. I talk about plant spirit families, the relationships that we're building and the intercession. And one of the things that most people are getting really excited about and commenting in reviews is there's a chapter on botanical divination and the way that we learn to deal with what spirits are really interested in working with us, whether it's using essential oil bottles as divination tiles, the way we would with runes or ogham, to really deciding which plants are reaching out for a spiritual relationship rather than a physical one. So you can do the same divinations that we talked about with different flower essences. The Bach flower remedies have really grown in the last. I've been aware of them for about 25 years, and the places where you can now find them is really incredible. I wouldn't imagine I would find Bach flower remedies in a grocery store 20 years ago.
Yeah. Also, you need to talk about your website, because there is a lot of things there, like a podcast, your tea shop, which is very important, divination services, and a whole bunch else.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for mentioning it. So you can go to amyblackthorn.com and you can download for free the first 30 pages of each of my books. I want you to know that my voice is the one you want in your head when you're talking about different magical practices. Like Blackthorn's Protection Magic has a middle chapter that's all about personal self-defense of your physical person. I want to make sure you go home safe at the end of your day. And you can check out blackthornsbotanicals.com to look at different magical teas and autographed copies of my books if you want something with a little bit more of a personalized note to it.
And talk a little bit more about the tea shop, because we all like tea. We love tea.
Tea is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I was super lucky. I had been working in executive protection for about 15 years when I was just burnt out, honestly. I had so much going on. I had nothing left for myself. And I really felt like I couldn't be Amy the witch because I was so busy being security Amy every minute that I needed to train my replacements and find something else to occupy my time. I was worn down to a nub. So my first day as a joyfully unemployed person, I went down in my kitchen and I grabbed the big cauldron and a great big candle and some ritual oils that I had made. And I'm anointing the candle and I'm praying and I'm talking to the spirits about what I want to do next and what I want for myself going forward. And I'm getting ready to light the candle and the doorbell rings. It's the post lady. She says, "Oh, I got to have you sign for a package." And I come back into the kitchen and the whole kitchen smells like lemongrass and blood orange and all the spices and herbs of the magic that I was creating. And my first thought was, I would really love to have a tea that smelled like this, that I could drink my tea and have a ritual while I was doing my ritual with the candle. And the light bulb goes on over my head. And about a week later, I had 15 tea blends that I had worked out down to the last minute. And I was so excited. I had been blending teas for years and had friends, more than 10 years, had friends saying, "Why don't you do this for business? Why don't you sell the teas that you make?" And it was just a labor of love. I just wanted to get people to connect with the plants they had in their own kitchens. But it got to the point where I really loved the idea of connecting people with plants through ritual, so they could turn their morning tea or their morning coffee or their morning ritual into a ritual. They could bring in money. They could clear the space for new adventures. They could banish grief. You could just decide who you needed to be that day and help become that person that you wanted to be for the rest of the day. And
so you better give out the address of the website so people can go buy some tea and
Absolutely.
All the other things that you've got going.
That is blackthornsbotanicals.com. They are both have an S at the end. So blackthornsbotanicals.com. You can check out again some of the autographed copies of books that I have, and I'm really excited to connect with some of the people who have read my books and really enjoyed what I had to say. The people don't think that writing fan letters is important, but it's been some of the most beautiful connections I've gotten to make with people outside of my office. When I'm writing, I'm just yelling at the walls until a book falls out. And to get feedback from people about how they connected with the material, to how they connected with themselves because of that material is incredibly moving.
All right. Well, we got to go. So really, thank you for coming up. I mean, it's been a while since you've been here, so I'm glad you're back. And
thank you so much for having me.
You can do another class anytime.
Wonderful.
And want to thank everybody who's listening in. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Stirring the Cauldrons Masterclass. Please join us at the same time for another great class and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Holiday Weasel by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.